Before YouTube had tutorials and TikTok taught us dance moves, there were bikes, real bikes, that didn't care about your bones, your insurance premiums, or your mother's nerves. These 10 beasts from the 90s weren't just motorcycles. They were two-wheeled death wishes disguised as freedom machines. One twist of the throttle and you were either hitting 180 or meeting Jesus. So buckle up, or don't. It's not like these bikes cared about seatbelts anyway. Let's take a ride through the most unhinged rides the 90s had to offer. Leather jacket optional, the Kawasaki Ninja ZX-11 is your bike if you prefer your motorcycles with a touch of James Bond villain. This beast held the title of world's fastest production motorcycle from 1990 to 1996, which basically means it could outrun most cars and your responsibilities. Powered by a 1,052 cubic centimeter inline-4 engine, the ZX-11 wasn't just about raw speed. It could hit over 170 miles per hour. That's not running late for work fast. That's accidentally entered a different time zone fast. What made it extra spicy was the RAM air intake system, a first for production bikes, which force-fed more air into the engine the faster you went. It's like giving Red Bull to a cheetah already on espresso. Surprisingly comfortable for its speed class, the ZX-11 was a sport tourer in denial, part rocket, part recliner. Just don't let the Ninja name fool you. It wasn't stealthy, it was loud, proud, and very likely to leave a puff of smoke and a nervous grin on your face. Would you dare to ride it? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you're into raw, no-nonsense bike history, hit subscribe. Next up, enter the Suzuki TL1000S, a bike that looked like it had everything going for it until it tried to kill you. Designed to go head-to-head with Ducati's V-twins, the TL1000S packed a 996 cubic centimeter V-twin engine that purred like a kitten. If that kitten had rabies and access to nitrous. With 125 horsepower and a torque curve that kicked like a mule in a bad mood, this bike had the heart of a racer wrapped in a street-legal frame. But here's where things got interesting. Suzuki, in a moment of budget-driven optimism, decided to replace a traditional rear shock with a rotary damper, an idea that seemed great on paper but turned real-world handling into a plot twist. At high speeds or aggressive turns, the TL1000S could get wobbly, earning it a reputation as the Widowmaker. Suzuki eventually slapped a steering damper on it like a parental advisory sticker. Helpful, but not exactly confidence-inspiring. Bottom line, the TL1000S was thrilling, temperamental, and just a little bit homicidal. When Yamaha dropped the YZF R1 in 1998, it was like showing up to a knife fight with a lightsaber. This wasn't just a superbike, it was a redefinition of what a sport bike could be. With a 998 cubic centimeter inline-4 engine crammed into a frame the size of a 600 cubic centimeter, it delivered 150 horsepower and weighed just 177 kilograms dry. Translation? It was basically a rocket ship on wheels, but with fewer safety features. The R1 wasn't just about raw power. Yamaha reworked the transmission, stacked the gearbox vertically, and created a compact chassis that made cornering feel like you were playing a video game, on cheat mode. But don't let the smooth lines and factory polish fool you. The R1 had a hair-trigger throttle and the kind of front-end lift that made accidental wheelies a part of your daily commute. It wasn't just fast, it was viciously efficient, unapologetically aggressive, and totally legendary. The R1 didn't just set the bar, it karate-chopped it in half. The Honda CBR 900RR Fireblade didn't just show up in the 90s. It kicked the door down, stole your lunch money, and ran a lap around the competition before anyone knew what happened. Designed by the legendary Tadao Baba, this bike wasn't the fastest in a straight line, but it redefined the word agility. Weighing just 185 kilograms and packing an 893 cubic centimeter inline-4 engine, the Fireblade was all about power to weight. Less bulk, more, holy crap, I'm airborne. It carved corners with the precision of a neurosurgeon on Red Bull, and the lightweight chassis meant even average riders could suddenly pretend they were Rossi on the weekends. It didn't have electronic aids or fancy traction control. It had a throttle, brakes, and just enough frame flex to keep things interesting. Its only real safety net? Your self-control. And let's be honest, that's not exactly a reliable system. The Fireblade was raw, responsive, and so addictive that riding it felt less like transport and more like therapy, the dangerous kind. The Ducati 916 wasn't just a motorcycle, it was art with a death wish. Designed by Massimo Tamburini, it looked like it belonged in a museum, and rode like it wanted to throw you off at 120 miles per hour. With its signature underseat exhaust, single-sided swing arm, and that unmistakable twin headlight stare, the 916 didn't whisper performance. It yelled it in Italian, with dramatic hand gestures. Underneath that seductive red bodywork was a 916cc V-twin engine pushing about 114 horsepower. Doesn't sound terrifying until you remember this was paired with razor-sharp geometry and suspension tuned for racetracks, not school zones. The 916th demanded respect. It was twitchy, temperamental, and if you didn't warm it up properly, it sulked like a moody opera singer. But when you got it right, pure mechanical poetry. It wasn't the fastest on paper, but it handled like a dream and made every ride feel cinematic. Think of it as the Sophia Loren of motorcycles. Gorgeous, intense, and definitely capable of breaking your heart or your collarbone. The Suzuki GSX-R 1100 was the kind of bike that skipped leg day and doubled down on protein shakes. Launched in the late 80s and evolving into the 90s, it was Suzuki's idea of what a superbike should be: massive, muscular, and only slightly unhinged. With a 1,127 cubic centimeter inline-4 engine pumping out around 145 horsepower, it wasn't here to set lap records. It was here to dominate straights and intimidate your neighbors. Weighing over 500 pounds, it handled like a freight train. That really wanted to be a ballet dancer. And while cornering wasn't its strong suit, twisting the throttle felt like being launched out of a medieval catapult. Zero subtlety, maximum chaos. It was brutally fast, unapologetically heavy, and surprisingly comfy for its size. The GSX-R 1100 quickly gained a reputation as the blunt instrument of sport bikes. Less finesse, more brute force. Riders loved it. Insurance companies? Not so much. It was the superbike equivalent of a street brawler in a leather jacket, loud, fast, and gloriously reckless. The Kawasaki KR-1S was the little green gremlin that packed way more punch than its size suggested. This 250cc two-stroke twin didn't just scream, it shrieked like a swarm of angry bees on nitrous. With about 55 horsepower and a red line somewhere in the stratosphere, the KR-1S didn't care about torque. It cared about getting to 10,000 RPM and staying there like its life depended on it. Lightweight and razor-sharp, the KR-1S handled like it was telepathic. It flicked into corners so quickly, you'd swear it was trying to impress Valentino Rossi. But like most two-strokes, it had the temperament of a caffeinated squirrel. Down low, it coughed and spluttered. Up high, it turned into a banshee with ADHD. Maintenance, frequent, reliability, debatable, fun, absolutely off the charts. It wasn't a superbike, but it thought it was, and that made every ride an adrenaline-charged ego trip. The KR-1S was pure 90s chaos, loud, wild, and always one gear away from doing something irresponsible. The Bimota V-Do was meant to be the glorious comeback of the two-stroke engine in the 90s. Lightweight, powerful, and Italian enough to flirt with your girlfriend. A 500cc V-twin, producing 110 horsepower in a chassis that felt like a feather? On paper, this thing was a track day fantasy, but in reality, it was a beautifully wrapped chaos machine. The V-Do's downfall was its fuel injection system, which, in theory, was revolutionary. In practice, it delivered power like a caffeinated kangaroo, erratic, unpredictable, and slightly dangerous. Riders reported throttle surges, poor idling, and misfires that made riding feel more like taming a mythological beast. Bimota eventually scrapped the injection system for carbs, but by then, the damage was done. It had earned its place in motorcycle infamy, part collector's treasure, part cautionary tale. Owning one today is like dating a supermodel with a criminal record, thrilling, expensive, and always one breakdown away from disaster. The Aprilia RS250 was the ultimate middle finger to the idea that bigger is better. This little two-stroke wonder had a 249 cubic centimeter V-twin engine derived from Suzuki's RGV 250, tuned by Aprilia to squeeze out around 60 horsepower, and every pony counted. With a dry weight of just over 130 kilograms, it had a power-to-weight ratio that made leader bikes sweat in corners. The RS250 wasn't about top-end power or highway pulls. It was about apexes, late braking, and throttle control so delicate it felt like you were playing a high-stakes video game. It had razor-sharp handling, a race-style chassis, and brakes that could stop time if you asked nicely. But don't let its size fool you. This bike demanded skill. Two-stroke engines don't forgive mistakes, and the RS250 made sure you respected the red line like your life depended on it. In short, the RS250 was a scalpel in a world of sledgehammers, precise, addictive, and just a little bit sadistic. Honda NR750 wasn't just a superbike. It was a flex of engineering madness from the 90s. Launched in 1992, this bike looked like it was built for a sci-fi movie. And under the carbon fiber bodywork lurked something truly wild. An 8-valve per cylinder V4 engine with oval pistons. Yes, oval. Honda designed it to mimic a V8, revving past 14,000 RPM and pumping out 125 horsepower, a staggering figure back then. It wasn't the fastest bike on the road, but it was one of the most dangerous because of how advanced it was. The throttle was twitchy, the power delivery was razor-sharp, and the handling required real skill. One wrong move, and you were meeting the pavement in style. Built more as a showcase than a street tool, only 300 were made, and it cost as much as a luxury car. The NR750 was Honda saying, "We can do anything," and in the hands of the untrained, that anything could mean a high-speed disaster. Now, these weren't just fast. They were unpredictable, unforgiving, and in the wrong hands, deadly. The 90s gave us bikes with more power than sense, and riders who lived on the edge of grip and good judgment. Some were engineering marvels. Others, beautiful mistakes on two wheels. But one thing's for sure, those machines had character. The kind you don't forget, or walk away from easily. Which one would you dare to ride? Drop your pick in the comments, and if you're into raw, no-nonsense bike history, hit subscribe. More stories, more speed, more danger, coming up next.